got baptized by a streetcar. Alright guys, so we're out here at McVeigh Automotive and Machine today, and we're getting this block O-ringed. This is the block that's going to go in my S10 this year, well, one of. We've got a couple blocks we're going to rotate between, but this will be the first one I use this season. Right now we're O-ringing it, so we've got this tool from BHJ. Basically this is a do-it-yourself tool. You don't have to use any kind of machinery. It comes with this plate that bolts to the block, and then it also bolts to the heads, to the receiver grooves too. So we've got this crank, and then we've got in here, if you look in here, we've got a cutter, and that cutter is 48 thousandths, and then we've got a 51 thousandths wire we're going to be pushing into the block surface. So basically that's going to make it so that the round wire that we punch into the block is secured, and then once you punch it in there it stays. So we are on the last cylinder now. After that we're going to put the block in the hot tank and punch all these O-rings in. McVeigh's, this is Billy. Hello? Nobody was there.
Well, I'm sure they hopped off when they heard this is Billy.
Alright, so we're now ready to install our O-ring wire. Like I said, this is 0.51 thousandths wire, and we've cut a 36 thousandths groove. So that leaves us about 14 to 15 thousandths sticking up out of the deck surface. We are doing receiver grooves, so it's okay to have that much sticking up out as long as you have receiver grooves. If you didn't do a receiver groove, they say not to do more than 8 to 10 thousandths sticking up. But what that's going to do is it's going to push the copper gasket up into the receiver groove in the head, and it's going to lock it in place, and it's really going to seal it up. So right now we're putting our wire in, and they say to always make sure the end of the wire that you're mating the other piece up to, make sure you put your ends near a head bolt hole. That way there is plenty of clamping force right there. You don't really want an end of a wire or a gap in between the cylinders. That would be like the worst case scenario that you could do. They definitely want you to put it near a head bolt hole. So we basically cut a wire a little bit long, and then we come in here and try to get it as close as possible and make our cut, and then we'll file down the rest. We'll cut it about right there. So now we will file down the rest and we'll punch it in there. Now if you zoom in on this, you can see that there's just a very tiny gap right there, but that's okay because it's going to push up into the gasket and it's going to seal it into the receiver groove. Shouldn't be any issues, and it's right next to a head bolt hole. So it's also very important when you do this, you're using a brass hammer or something soft, or you're pounding it in with a piece of wood or something like that. You don't want to mess up your deck surface. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get some of our parts ready. This is a hot tank. Makes life so much easier rather than trying to brake clean everything. This thing will get hot, it'll get all the parts clean, uses water and some cleaning solutions, and then when you take it out, everything's pretty much ready to go. Just have to wipe it down. This is what a lot of people don't get to see in the wintertime when you're building something and you're just grinding away. Everybody wants to watch the videos of the racing and stuff, but this is the boring, monotonous stuff that we just have to do in the wintertime to make sure that we're ready when it comes time to race. Hopefully the time we put in this winter doing these O-rings will save us multiple weekends of trying to pull head gaskets or pull heads off and re-gasket and everything else. Hopefully this is the last time I'll ever blow a head gasket on the small block Chevy. I'm hoping that, I mean, there's not much room between these two grooves. Like, if you were to try to do this on a motor that was like 30 over, small block 400, you probably wouldn't be able to get those grooves in there. You'd have to do a figure 8 style. That would be even more difficult, and that would definitely require a CNC machine or something like that. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to O-ring Tommy's block. We might have to do like a cut ring gasket for it, or do like some other kind of O-ring style, like the figure 8 style. There's just not a whole lot of room on these small blocks. I mean, you've got these head bolt holes between each cylinder that's very close to the ring. I mean, it's even close down here. And you really can't go in any farther on the cylinders either. And you'd definitely be in a lot closer if you were 30 over. And this is just a standard bore, so that's one drawback of the small block Chevy, is especially a 400, is there's just not a lot of meat between the cylinders. And this is a dirt block. This has more than a stock block. So I don't know how people do it on a stock 400 block, but it's definitely tough. Alright, so that's the last one. We've got all our O-rings in the block. Come out really nice, I think. Couldn't have got it much better, really. I mean, we got about an even distance between them and an even distance between them and the cylinder. So I think we're good as far as the block goes. We're going to do the receiver grooves and the heads, and we're going to get this block in the hot tank, get it cleaned up, get all the shavings out of it. I'm going to pull the main caps off, wash the bearings separately, and we'll be ready to start doing assembly. So it's important to make sure that when you take these bearings out, you number them. In this case, these are already numbered. They've kind of scribbled numbers on there. You want to make sure that you don't put them back in the wrong order, because we are reusing these bearings. They look good. If you put them in the wrong place, you're gonna have problems just by the way they've already been worn. So this is our Melling oil pump we run. It's a billet oil pump for a big block Chevy, actually, but it works on a small block. I wanted to take this thing apart. I popped the snap ring out and I took the screen off, and I'm making sure to clean this thing out really good, because this was on the last engine that was in my truck, and obviously it had some bearing failures, and it sent a lot of metallic material, a lot of metal through the engine. So I want to make sure we get this cleaned out really good before we put it on a new engine.
One eternity later.
Uncle Bob's probably done this a few more times than I have. Easy.
Tomorrow for sure.
Alright guys, so we're back here at McVeigh Automotive today, and we've got the block finished up. Bob went ahead and made sure that The crank was all balanced, so the crank's ready to go. We've got the head ready to be cut for the receiver grooves. Gonna go ahead and file fit the rings today, and we're gonna try and get this thing assembled, at least the short block assembled today. We'll see how far we get. Gonna take our time with it. It's a slow process. We wanna make sure we take good care and we don't mess anything up. If you rush things like this, it's just gonna cost you in the long run. So we'll take our time today and let's have some fun. So right now I'm about to put the pistons on the rods. I got to make sure they're all oriented correctly. The small block Chevy, obviously you have two exhaust valves closest to each other on the middle two cylinders, so we got to make sure everything's right, and we have to make sure that on the rods there's a big end and a short end of the rod. You can see it's not the same. This side always goes towards the outside of the crank, like towards the outside, and this side always goes towards the other rod that's beside it. So you got to make sure that's right, or else you'll have serious issues. Got the first one in. So that'll be our number 2 piston. So on the spiral locks, you just kind of have to spread them apart and then cram it in and try to turn it as you go. It's a pain. I've seen other methods, but I mean it's really hard to get them in no matter what you do, and you're probably gonna bleed. So that'll be our number 2 piston. That'll work. Thank you. Nothing like putting it together yourself, Bob. This will be the first one I've done myself, just me.
Yeah. It's okay.
I mean,
I mean, really. Yeah. Still the same. Yeah. Easier it is to identify. I don't have to be as much as, and then I know which direction I'm going in there.
I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? When you leave the bearings in it till after you put your rods on. You can really leave them on. Truly, I leave them on. And, this is all about talk,
Right.
But it also, in the next one or whatever, you can leave them. I seen you take your bearings out, but you were thinking this direction, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact is that if you do leave them on there, leave both bearings in there. And that's what I was saying is as
You can see better.
You can see better. And like I said, for me, everything wants to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
And
for any
and so if I can see that chamfer larger, then because you got it on this side, but it's also there too. I'll put that bearing back.
Yeah, I've been just looking at which side of the rod.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. I mean that's. But my problem is I'll get to looking at them and it's like, I have to pause or I have to take an extra, and it's like, why do I even want to think about it? If I leave the bearing in there, I'll know.
Yeah.
But when you go to put it together, you'll have the bearing in there, so then you'll see it with the end of the crank down in there. You're good, brother. You're good. As long as you don't put me in this video.
You're the superstar.
Huh?
You're the superstar. You gotta be in it.
Pardon my language. No, I'm just trying to have a little fun.
All right, so this is our last piston we got to do. It's number 8. We've made sure that it is oriented correctly. This will be number 8 right here. So we got our exhaust valve towards the back of the cylinder head, and we've got our rod, and it's going to be oriented this way with the big end of the rod towards the outside, because this is the furthest back cylinder, so it's going to be outside on that crank journal. So it'll be towards the outside, and then the piston will be like this. So, and I've also noticed that every single rod or piston, the numbers here on the piston were also on the same side as the small end of the rod, the one that's not chamfered. It doesn't have a groove, it's just flat. So that's always matching that number. So that's just something I've noticed while I've been doing this. Helps to reassure me that I'm doing it right. So the first thing we're gonna do, take our spiral lock, and this is a real pain. So we're gonna try to do this the best we can. But the best way that I found to do this is to try to spread it apart like this, and then you just kind of push it in there until you get it started on the groove, and then you start cramming it in there. So we've got it started. Here, snap, snap, snap. So it's in the groove. And then now we're going to take our rod, put a little assembly lube in the small end of the rod so that our wrist pin is nice and lubricated. We'll slide it through there just to get the pin lubricated, make sure it feels good. And then we'll take it, make sure that the small end of the rod, so this is the big end, it's kind of got that angle, and then this is the flat end. So the flat end is going to go towards these numbers. Put it on there, slide our pin through. Like that. We'll come in here, we'll put our last spiral lock on. They send you like double of what you need because they know you're gonna like lose half of them. Half of them are gonna go flying, half of them are gonna be permanently embedded in your skin after you're done. So they send you plenty of extras. That's nice. So that pin is not all the way in. There it goes. Put this last pin in, last spiral lock in. Get it started in the groove. These could be a real pain if you've never done them before. You just kind of get the hang of it as you go. And when I first started earlier, I was like, there's no way. But you get the hang of it eventually. So that'll be our number 8. Go right here just like that. Alright guys, so I'm going to finish file fitting these rings. And after that we should be in pretty good shape. We'll be able to put the rings on the pistons. And then we can start assembling the short block tomorrow. That should be good enough for one video here. Bob was really happy with how the O-rings turned out in the block. He said that I did a really good job. Bob wasn't able to be here yesterday or the day before that because he was sick, but luckily he was feeling a little bit better today, so he came in and gave me some pointers on how to do a few things and kind of let me run with it. This will be the first one I've ever assembled from start to finish all by myself. Hopefully it turns out pretty good. Everything looks good so far, and we're having fun with it. So we're gonna end this video right there. Look for the next video. We'll be assembling the rest of the engine, probably get the short block together, maybe get the heads on it, and then we're gonna dyno it. We're gonna put it on there in the engine dyno room, and we're gonna see what it makes NA. And then we'll be able to retorque the heads right there in his dyno room. Don't have to put it down in the truck and take all the turbo headers and everything off. So that'll be really nice. But yeah, we're going to close this one out. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.